Let's look at Joshua chapter 14, the first 2 verses. Now these are the territories which the sons of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the households of the tribes of the sons of Israel apportioned to them for an inheritance by the lot of their inheritance, as Yahweh commanded through Moses for the 9 tribes and the half tribe. Now the inheritances of the land of the 9.5 tribes are given in chapters 14 through 19. Now, how many of you are land surveyors? Raise your hand. Okay, nobody. Okay, well, this won't mean much to you then. So we're going to kind of jump over that because that's what it is. We have property descriptions. Have you ever read your property description? Okay. Did you find it fascinating? Okay. Well, there you go. Right. That's too much, just too much like work. Boom, looky there. We jumped all the way to chapter 20. This computer age is really amazing. The first 3 verses, then Yahweh spoke to Joshua, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, designate the cities of refuge, of which I spoke to you through Moses, that the manslayer who kills any person unintentionally, without premeditation, may flee there, and they shall become your refuge from the avenger of blood." Now, the land is divided up, and the people are to set up cities of refuge. Now, this was commanded by Elohim. The cities were spread throughout the land, and that was in order to give a man a chance for justice in the case of an accidental manslaughter. And here they're showing, you see how the cities are scattered around. So if there's an accidental manslaughter that takes place, you have a running chance to make it to a city of refuge. Verses 4 and 5, "And he shall flee to one of these cities, and shall stand at the entrance of the gate of the city, and state his case in the hearing of the elders of that city. And they shall take him into the city to them, and give him a place so that he may dwell among them. Now if the avenger of blood pursues him, and they shall not deliver the manslayer, then they shall not deliver the manslayer into his hand, because he struck his neighbor without premeditation, and he did not hate him beforehand." Now, this is, according to Scripture, the difference between an accidental manslaughterer and a murderer. Okay, premeditation is one thing. The other thing could be, did you hate the person? If there's no witnesses, but it's known that you hate the person, manslaughter is not the charge. Murder is. So that's called justice. Verse 6. And, once again, Yeshua said, if you hate your brother in your heart, you're a murderer. Well, that's the difference between innocence and guilt, is that hate. Yeah.
What about if they had too much to drink?
Well, it depends on the situation. What happened? Did he hate the guy or not? Were both of them drunk? Did both of them get in the car? Had too much to drink? The one guy happened to be driving?
Not supposed to drink too much, so it causes you to sin.
Right, you're not supposed to drink so much that cause you to sin. That's correct. So, once again, you have to talk to the judges, and each case was different. All right? And when they talked about justice in these situations, it was always brought to judges and in front of the people. It was always done that way. It was never... there's a lot of Christians out there that you tell them that you follow Torah. Oh, do you stone your children for disobedience? No, but we punch a Christian in the nose for being ignorant. But, just kidding, of course. No, we don't stone our children for being disobedient. It's there's specific rules, and once again, you'd have to take your children before the judges, and they would have to make that decision. You can't curse your parents. You can't strike your parents. And why we even need those rules is amazing. But we do. Okay? We need those rules. We don't have an instance in Scripture of a young man who cursed his parents or struck his parents being taken to the judges. but it was a law, nonetheless. Verse 6, and he shall dwell in that city until he stands before the congregation for judgment, until the death of one who is high priest in those days. Then the manslayer shall return to his own city and to his own house, to the city from which he fled. Well, now Elohim considers the spilling of blood to be very serious on the part of the slayer, even if it's accidental. It's a very serious issue. Now, they could go to that city of refuge, and they could get refuge there. Okay, but they can't leave that city. If they leave that city, they leave their refuge. He has to stay in that city until the death of the high priest in that day occurs. And that could be a long time. And this is a beautiful picture of Messiah and the high priest, who through his death and resurrection, he rescued us from the capacity of certain damnation due to our sin. And that's what is happening here. It's through the death of that high priest. Verse 7, so they set apart Kadesh in Galilee, in the hill country of Naphtali, and Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, they designated Bezer in the wilderness on the plain from the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth and Gilead from the tribe of Gad, Golan and Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. These were the appointed cities for all the sons of Israel, and for the stranger who sojourns among them, that whoever kills any person unintentionally may flee there, and not die by the hand of the avenger of blood, until he stands before the congregation. Elohim wants justice and mercy to be an intricate part of his people. Justice and mercy. Let's go to chapter 21. Then the heads of households of the Levites approached Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of households of the tribes of the sons of Israel. And they spoke to them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, saying, Yahweh commanded through Moses to give us cities to live in with their pasture lands for our cattle. Now, the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites were promised cities to dwell in by Moses. Okay, they're not going to have land to own, but they can have a place to live in the city. In Numbers 35, starting at verse 1, now Yahweh spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, opposite Jericho, saying, Command the sons of Israel that they give to the Levites from the inheritance of their possession cities to live in, and you shall give to the Levites pasture lands around the cities, and the cities shall be theirs to live in, and their pasture lands shall be for their cattle and for their herds and for all their beasts. And the pasture lands of the cities which you shall give to the Levites shall extend from the wall of the city outward 1,000 cubits around. You shall also measure outside the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, on the south side 2,000 cubits, on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits, with the city in the center. This shall become theirs as pasture lands for their cities. Okay, now they spoke to Joshua in Shiloh, and Shiloh is the resting place of the tabernacle at that time. Looking at Joshua 18, verse 1, it says, Then the whole congregation of the sons of Israel assembled themselves at Shiloh, and set up the tent of meeting there, and the land was subdued before them. Okay, so the Levites are given their cities to live in. Everything is settling down. They're getting the land. Verse 3 of Joshua 21, the sons of Israel gave the Levites from their inheritance these cities with their pasture lands, according to the command of Yahweh. Then the lot came out for the families of the Kohathites, and the sons of Aaron the priests, who were of the Levites, received 13 cities by lot from the tribe of Judah, and from the tribe of the Simeonites, and from the tribe of Benjamin. The rest of the sons of Kohath received 10 cities by lot from the families of the tribe of Ephraim, and from the tribe of Dan, and from the half-tribe of Manasseh. Now, the next 35 verses or so, they detail the cities given to the Levites from the tribes, and we're not gonna go there. We're gonna skip to verse 41. All the cities of the Levites in the midst of the possession of the sons of Israel were 48 cities with their pasture lands. These cities each had its surrounding pasture lands. Thus it was with all these cities. So Yahweh gave Israel all the land which he had sworn to give to their fathers, and they possessed it and lived in it. So the Levites received the cities that were promised to them, and this reminds Israel of the faithfulness of Elohim. Verse 44, and Yahweh gave them rest on every side, according to all that he had sworn to their fathers, and no one of all their enemies stood before them. Yahweh gave all their enemies into their hand. You know, this is essentially a summary of the first 13 chapters. We detailed the battles that they went through. Elohim gave them rest according to all that he had sworn to their fathers. All their enemies were delivered into their hand. And remember, that's 7 nations. Each one of them was a greater and larger and more populous people than they were. Each one was. Verse 45. Not one of the good promises which Yahweh had made to the house of Israel failed. All came to pass. Elohim never failed in anything that he promised. From deliverance to Egypt, to deliverance from all their enemies, to a land that was beautiful and fruitful for them to dwell in. The promises of Elohim always come to fruition. In Numbers 23, verse 19, we read, Elohim is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should repent. Has he said, and will he not do it? Or has he spoken, and will he not make it good? 1 Kings 8, verse 56, blessed be Yahweh, who has given rest to his people Israel, according to all that he promised. Not one word has failed of all his good promise, which he promised through Moses, his servant. And also 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 24, faithful is he who calls you, and he also will bring it to pass. Now, we've got some stuff that goes on in chapter 22. We've got everything laid out. Everyone's got their cities. Everyone's got their territories. But something happens. You know what it is? You get people get together, what happens? Something. You know? Somebody does something wrong. And so-and-so over there don't like it. Now, who's right and who's wrong? Well, I don't know. Let's take a look and see. Chapter 22, the first 3 verses of Joshua. Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, you have kept all that Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded you, and have listened to my voice in all that I commanded you. You have not forsaken your brothers these many days to this day, but have kept the charge of the commandment of Yahweh your Elohim. So he's getting the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half that tribe of Manasseh together. He's going to tell them they've done well in obeying Yahweh. They came along to battle the Canaanites just as they were commanded, even though they wanted land that wasn't even there. In Numbers 32, starting in verse 20, so Moses said to them, if you'll do this, if you'll arm yourselves before Yahweh for war, and all of you armed men cross the Jordan before Yahweh until he has driven his enemies out from before him, and the land is subdued before Yahweh, then afterward you shall return and be free of obligation toward Yahweh and toward Israel, and this land shall be yours for a possession before Yahweh. So they did that. Okay? They went into battle with their brothers and did well. And here they are. This is, the land is divided this way. They stayed on this side of the Jordan. What's wrong with that? Other than Elohim, originally didn't tell them to stay on that side. They wanted to do it, and they got permission. Do you see a problem there? Is there a logistical problem with having a river between 2.5 that separates 2.5 of the tribes? Where's that tabernacle? It's over here in Judah, in Shiloh. It's on this side of the Jordan. You see where there could be a problem? How are they going to get there?
By boat.
By boat? Two at a time? Got a few 100,000 people. You know, all the men are supposed to get there. Verses 4 and 5 of Joshua 22. And now Yahweh your Elohim has given rest to your brothers, and he spoke to them. Therefore turn now and go to your tents, to the land of your possession, which Moses, the servant of Yahweh, gave you beyond the Jordan. Only be very careful to observe the commandment in the Torah, which Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded you, to love Yahweh your Elohim and walk in all his ways, keep his commandments, and hold fast to him and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. Well, the people are told to keep all the commandments that Elohim has given them. They are to follow the commandments that Yahweh gave to his servant Moses. Hold fast to him, serve him with all their heart, soul, and mind. Now, it's in this little passage here, he says, I want you to love Yahweh your Elohim. Now, that term love, we, excuse me, in this day and age, it means a lot of different things. It's an emotional thing. It's not an emotional thing in Scripture. He tells you how to do it. I mean, if he tells you what is to be done, to love Yahweh your Elohim. Detailed right here. Love Yahweh your Elohim. Walk in his ways, keep his commandments. That's how you hold fast to him and serve him with all your heart, with all your soul. That's how you do it. Okay? That's how. You don't just try and, build up feelings. Let me, get my favorite spiritual songs out and try and build up my feelings so I can love God more. No, that's not it. What we have to do is be obedient to his Torah. Yeshua said this is the greatest commandment of all. In Matthew 22, verses 37 and 38, and he said to him, you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. So he quotes this. So how do you do it? By being obedient to his Torah. Serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. By walking in his ways, keeping his commandments, holding fast to him and serving him. That's how you do it. Joshua is stating the same truth that Yeshua did. Verse 6 of chapter 22. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. Now to the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh, Moses had given a possession in Bashan, but to the other half Joshua gave a possession among their brothers westward beyond the Jordan. So when Joshua sent them away to their tents, he blessed them, and said to them, return to your tents and with great riches and with very much livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, iron, with very many clothes. Divide the spoil of your enemies with your brothers. Now, Manasseh was split. Half the tribe was on the east side and half of it's on the west. And they were allowed the portion of those spoils among those people whom they'd conquered. Verses 9 and 10. And the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh returned home and departed from the sons of Israel at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan, to go to the land of Gilead, to the land of their possession, which they had possessed, according to the command of Yahweh through Moses. And when they came to the region of the Jordan, which is in the land of Canaan, the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by the Jordan, a large altar in appearance. So, they built an altar, those 2.5 tribes did. They were building their own altar on the east side of the Jordan. Now that doesn't sit well with the other 9.5 tribes. Verse 11, and the sons of Israel heard it, said, behold, the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh have built an altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan in the region of the Jordan on the side belonging to the sons of Israel. The other tribes hear this and they are furious. They felt like these 2.5 tribes were breaking the clear commands of Elohim that prohibit sacrifices except at the door of the tabernacle, which contains the Ark of the Covenant. The only place offerings can be done is at the tabernacle, where the Ark of the Covenant is. People say where the presence of Elohim can be seen. People say, well, if the Jews build a third temple, then they can do sacrifices again. Well, no, they can't. They have to build it where that Dome of the Rock is, for one thing, because that's the spot that Elohim said there to do those things. And that's just not going to happen. But these guys are setting up their own place, okay? On the other side of the Jordan now, setting up an altar there. We read in Leviticus 17, verses 8 and 9, "Then you shall say to them, any man from the house of Israel, or from the aliens who sojourn among them, who offers a burnt offering and sacrifice, and does not bring it to the doorway of the tent of meeting to offer it to Yahweh, that man also shall be cut off from his people." Deuteronomy 12, verses 10 through 14 says, "When you cross the Jordan and live in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you to inherit, and he gives you rest from all your enemies around you, so that you may live in security, then it shall come about that the place in which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose for his name to dwell, there you shall bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and the contribution of your hand, and all your choice votive offerings which you will vow to Yahweh. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, you and your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levite who is within your gates, since he has no portion or inheritance with you. Be careful that you do not offer your burnt offerings in every cultic place you see, but in the place which Yahweh chooses in one of your tribes, there you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do all that I command you." So that's the only place they can do it, is that one place. And they said, look, they're setting up an altar over there. That's bad. Verse 12, "And when the sons of Israel heard of it, the whole congregation of the sons of Israel gathered themselves at Shiloh to go up against them in war." Now the other tribes here, they considered them in rebellion against Elohim. They were either worshiping other gods, or they were in disobedience with doing sacrifices in the wrong place. Now they looked into the law, and they were doing what the law tells them to do, what the Torah says. Look at what it says in Deuteronomy 13, starting at verse 12. Excuse me. "If you hear in one of your cities, which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you to live in, anyone saying that some worthless men have gone out from among you and have seduced the inhabitants of their city, saying, 'Let us go and serve other gods whom you've not known,' then you shall investigate and search out and inquire thoroughly. And if it is true and the matter established that this abomination has been done among you, you will surely strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying it and all that is in it, and its cattle with the edge of the sword." Okay, so that's the penalty. Are you worshiping other gods here? What are you doing? Well, first, it says, "They shall investigate and search out and inquire thoroughly." They're going to do that first. That, in cases of that are of real big importance, that's always best. Let's inquire about it, okay, before we make our mind up. Let's search it out diligently like we're supposed to before we go and destroy these people. That's a good idea. This explains, too, why James and the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15 prohibited certain idolatrous practices of Gentiles before they were allowed to hear the message of Messiah and also learn of the Torah. That was in Acts 15, starting at verse 18. We read, "Says Yahweh, who makes these things known from of old. Therefore it is my judgment." And here's a question. Here was the question that was going on in Acts 15. Can we allow Gentiles in the synagogues to learn of Messiah and to learn of the Torah? And there was a lot of people, they were split. Well, they're not circumcised, they're unclean, they said. Well, we need to circumcise them first, was the answer from some of them. And the Gentiles said, never mind. we were curious before, but we're not anymore. So there was a problem here. And then a lot of people are saying, and Peter came out with a great thought. He said, adult circumcision? Why are we making them go through something that we didn't have to go through? That's a burden we didn't have to bear. And by the way, if there's some translational issues in that whole passage, but this is how it was originally intended, what I'm telling you. He said, we weren't circumcised as adults. Why should we make them bear a burden that we didn't have to bear? So I said, okay, I'll tell you what. Here's what we can do. They can't do their pagan practices anymore if they're going to come with us, because we can't have that among us, as we just read the Torah. Therefore, we read in verse 19, it is my judgment that we do not trouble those who are turning to Elohim from among the Gentiles, but that we write to them, in other words, they don't have to be circumcised, we write to them that they abstain from things contaminated by idols, from fornication, which was part of their idol worship. That's why it was attractive. That's why it was popular. Let's go to the temple prostitutes and go worship. Bob. And that's what they were doing. And from what it strangled, that's how they sacrificed their animals. They strangled them, which you don't do that. That was a pagan practice, prohibited in the Torah. And from blood. Blood was used in all kinds of pagan ceremonies. He said those were the prevalent things. Those were the four prevalent items of pagan worship in that day. He said if you can stay away from those things, it says in verse 21, for Moses from ancient generations has in every city those who preach him, since he is read in the synagogues every Sabbath. They can come in and learn the Torah of Moses. But you see, that's why it was such an issue in that day. Can we just let these guys in? We can't do that. They're unclean. They're pagans. They worship idols. They do this temple fornication. They strangle animals to their fake gods of wood and stone. They throw blood on each other. We can't have that. They said, yeah, okay. They have to stop that. The circumcision thing, that can come later. Okay? Let's wait and see if their hearts are led to do this or not before we require circumcision. They can't have Passover until they do. And what do we have in Acts 16? The very beginning of the chapter. Anybody remember? Paul circumcises Timothy. Okay? Because he had a Jewish mother, but a Greek father. And because he had a Greek father, none of the rabbis in that area would circumcise him. No, he's a mix. Nope, not good enough. Not good enough. So Paul did it himself and had Timothy be one of his aides. Any questions on that before we move on? So it was an important issue. People think Acts 15, well, Gentiles just have a separate set of standards. No, they don't. They have the same standards that they're to follow Torah also. But for them to come in and learn, you've got to do away with this pagan nonsense. Got to do away with it. Okay. Now, those worshiping other gods cannot have sanctuary with believers. Because, you know what's going to happen? The hearts of those believers are going to turn. All right? In Deuteronomy 11, starting at verse 16, beware lest your hearts be deceived and you turn away and serve other gods and worship them. And like I said, there's a lot of alluring things with this false worship. Okay? There was the sex. There was the shows. There's the songs. There's the emotions. All kinds of things. Your hearts will be deceived. He says, or the anger of Yahweh will be kindled against you, and he'll shut up the heavens so that there be no rain, and the ground will not yield its fruit. You'll perish quickly from the good land which Yahweh is giving you. You shall therefore impress these words of mine on your heart and on your soul. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand. They shall be as frontals on your forehead. You shall teach them to your sons, talking of them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you rise up. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your sons may be multiplied on the land which Yahweh swore to your fathers to give them, as long as the heavens remain above the earth. Deuteronomy 12, starting at verse 1, says, "These are the statutes and the judgments which you shall carefully observe in the land which Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, has given you to possess as long as you live on the earth. You shall utterly destroy the places where the nations whom you shall dispossess serve their gods. On the high mountains, on the hills, and under every green Christmas tree. You shall tear down their altars and smash their sacred pillars and burn their asherim with fire. You shall cut down the engraved images of their gods. You shall obliterate their name from that place. You shall not act like this toward Yahweh your Elohim." He does not want us worshiping him the same way the pagans worship their gods. He wants no part of it. Deuteronomy 13, starting at verse 6. "If your brother, your mother's son, or your son or daughter, or the wife you cherish, or your friend who is as your own soul, entice you secretly, saying, 'Let us go and serve other gods whom neither you nor your fathers have known,' of the gods of the people who are around you, near you or far from you, from one end of the earth or to the other end, you shall not yield to him or listen to him, and your eye shall not pity him, nor shall you spare or conceal him. But you shall surely kill him, your hand first against him to put him to death, and afterwards the hands of all the people." In other words, bring him before the judges and before the people. "So you shall stone him to death because he has sought to seduce you from Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Then all Israel will hear and be afraid, and never again do such a wicked thing among you." Well, many people did the worship false gods. Many, and it just can't be allowed, okay? It just can't be allowed. You can't be worshiping false gods and come in and learn the ways of the Father. You can't do both. You know, why should the Torah be the foundation for our belief? Because that was the foundation of belief for Joshua, for David, for Elijah, for the apostles. All the great men of Scripture had the same foundation. Deuteronomy 27, verse 26 says, "Cursed is he who does not confirm the words of this Torah by doing them." And all the people shall say, Amen. Verses 13 and 14. "Then the sons of Israel sent to the sons of Reuben and to the sons of Gad and to the half-tribe of Manasseh into the land of Gilead, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, and with him 10 chiefs, one chief for each father's household from each of the tribes of Israel, and each one of them was the head of his father's household among the thousands of Israel." Okay, they're doing exactly what Torah said to do in a case such as this. "You shall investigate and search out and inquire thoroughly." That's what they're doing. But do you see with these other passages we just read how they're looking at this as an urgent situation? Very important. That you have to investigate, search out, and inquire thoroughly. So that's what they're doing. Verses 15 and 16. "And they came to the sons of Reuben, and to the sons of Gad, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, and to the land of Gilead. And they spoke with them, saying, 'Thus says the whole congregation of Yahweh, what is this unfaithful act which you have committed against Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, turning away from following Yahweh this day by building yourselves an altar to rebel against Yahweh this day?'" So they confronted these tribes. They wanted to know why they were doing this treachery against Elohim. Now, this unfaithful act, that's that Hebrew word ma'al. And it's the same word used to describe, remember what Achan did in Joshua 7? This was in Joshua 7. "But the sons of Israel acted unfaithfully." It's that same word, Hebrew ma'al. "In regard to the things under ban, for Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, took some of the things under the ban. Therefore, the anger of Yahweh burned against the sons of Israel." Achan and his family, the only ones that did this. They weren't, when they defeated somebody, they weren't supposed to take the gold and silver, but they did in this case. And he hid it in his tent and buried it. Remember? And what does he say this is? This is all the sons of Israel acted treacherously, unfaithfully, because of that one guy. These 9.5 tribes are going to them and saying, hey, we're not going to carry the water for you here, buddy, because this could come down on all of us. Very important. They use that same word to describe it. Verses 17 and 18. Is not the iniquity of Peor enough for us, from which we have not cleansed ourselves to this day? Even a plague came on the congregation of Yahweh, that you must turn away this day from following Yahweh. And it'll come about, if you rebel against Yahweh today, that he'll be angry with the whole congregation of Israel tomorrow. Now the iniquity of Peor, that was the people following Baal. That's in Numbers 25, starting at verse 3. So Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor, and Yahweh was angry against Israel. And Yahweh said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people and execute them in broad daylight before Yahweh, so that the fierce anger of Yahweh may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to the judges of Israel, each of you slay his men who have joined themselves to Baal of Peor. The people involved were all judged severely. Down in verse 7, when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose in the midst of the congregation, took a spear in his hand. He went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through the body. So the plague of the sons of Israel was checked, and those who died by the plague were 24,000. The men knew that all the people of the tribes would have to pay for it if they did nothing about it. Verse 19, if, however, the land of your possession is unclean, then cross into the land of the possession of Yahweh, where Yahweh's tabernacle stands, and take possession among us. Only do not rebel against Yahweh, or rebel against us by building an altar for yourselves, besides the altar of Yahweh our Elohim. They offered to share their land if the land they were at was unclean, but only one altar is allowed, and only one place is allowed to sacrifice to Elohim. That's according to his Torah. Verse 20, did not Achan the son of Zerah act unfaithfully in these things under the ban? And wrath fall on all the congregation of Israel, that man did not perish alone in his iniquity. Elohim called that sin of Achan a sin of Israel, not just a sin of Achan. They feared Elohim would do that again. They had no choice here but to put an end to this. Verse 21, then the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh answered and spoke to the heads of the families of Israel. The mighty one, Elohim, Yahweh the mighty one, Elohim, Yahweh, he knows, and may Israel itself know. If it was in rebellion or if in an unfaithful act against Yahweh, do not you save us this day. If we built us an altar to turn away from following Yahweh, or if to offer a burnt offering or grain offering on it, or if to offer sacrifices or peace offerings on it, may Yahweh himself require it. The men of the 2.5 tribes agreed with them. They said if they're involved in treachery against Elohim, then they deserve death. Verse 24, but truly we've done this out of concern for a reason, saying, in time to come your sons may say to our sons, what have you to do with Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel? For Yahweh has made the Jordan a border between us and you. You sons of Reuben and sons of Gad, you have no portion in Yahweh, so your sons may make our sons stop fearing Yahweh. Excuse me. They did not want the descendants of the other tribes to claim that they have no part in the worship of Elohim. Spiritual legacy is very important to them, and it should be to us also. We want our children to worship Elohim. Now, they wanted the altar there just to be a reminder, just as the stones were after they crossed the Jordan. Let's go to verse 26. Therefore we said, let us build an altar and offer a burnt offering or for sacrifice. Rather it shall be a witness between us and you and between our generations after us, that we are to perform the service of Yahweh before him with our burnt offerings with our sacrifices and with our peace offerings, that your sons may not say to our sons in time to come, you have no portion in Yahweh. They want their descendants to know that they have a portion in the worship of Elohim just like the other tribes do. This altar is not for any kind of sacrifice. It's a reminder only. Verse 24 or 28. Therefore we said, it shall also come about, if they say this to us, to our generations in time to come, then we shall say, see the copy of the altar of Yahweh which our fathers made, not for burnt offering or for sacrifice, rather as a witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against Yahweh and turn away from following Yahweh this day by building an altar for burnt offering or grain offering or sacrifice, besides the altar of Yahweh or Elohim which is before his tabernacle. They just wanted this to be a witness for generations to come. That's all. They probably should have announced it earlier and said what they were going to do, but they didn't do that. Verse 30, so when Phinehas the priest and the leaders of the congregation, even the heads of the families of Israel who were with him, heard the words which the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and sons of Manasseh spoke, it pleased them. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, said to the sons of Reuben and to the sons of Gad and to the sons of Manasseh, today we know that Yahweh is in our midst, because you've not committed this unfaithful act against Yahweh. Now you've delivered the sons of Israel from the hand of Yahweh. Phinehas understood their desires. He understood their intentions in building the altar. He realized they were all delivered from the wrath of Elohim. Verse 32, then Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, and the leaders returned from the sons of Reuben and from the sons of Gad and from the land of Gilead to the land of Canaan, to the sons of Israel, and brought back word to them. And the word pleased the sons of Israel, and the sons of Israel blessed Elohim. And they did not speak of going up against them to war, or in war, to destroy the land in which the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad were living. So they went back, told everyone everything's cool, told them what happened. We're not going to go destroy anybody right now.
So they say not to build the...
They're just building it as a remembrance, okay, not to be used. Verse 34, the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad called the altar witness, for they said, it is a witness between us that Yahweh is Elohim. So they named it for what it was. It's a witness. It's a witness that they serve Yahweh. Any thoughts, any questions?